All right, this is a Prescott City Council voting meeting. Today is Tuesday, August 22nd. Thank you very much for attending. It's always nice to see members of the public in the audience. So we will start with introductions and announcements. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. We have two announcements. The City of Prescott is hosting a household hazardous waste event from March 7th through March 25th. If you're a City of Prescott resident, we'll come to your home to pick up unwanted household hazardous items such as old insecticides and pesticides, gasoline, car batteries, drain and oven cleaners, bleach, CFL, and fluorescent light bulbs, oil and latex-based paints, sealers, adhesives, non-alkaline batteries, and old mercury thermometers, and much, much more. Pre-registration is required, so please give us a call at 928-777-1116 or sign up online at prescott-az.gov and click on the HHW event on the main page to schedule your appointment today. Let's properly dispose of hazardous materials. Next, save the date, February 27th from noon to 3 p.m. at the historic Plaza Bowl in Prescott. Come meet Eden in person and join us for Bowling for Eden. Eden is our adorable Labradoodle puppy. And Eden will be the first emotional support facility dog in our law enforcement agencies in Yavapai County. Although Eden was gifted to us, there was no budget to pay for all of her needs. Bowling for Eden will raise the money to get her started. She is currently in training and will be joining the police department soon. Bowlers will receive an Eden tote bag, pizza, and a soda. Donations are $40 per bowler or $150 for a team of 4. There will also be a raffle and a silent auction with lots of great prizes. Business sponsorships still available, guys. And so please call 928-420-4407 for more information, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem. That was scintillating. We'll now have an invocation from Rabbi Eli Feller from the Shabbat of Prescott, followed by a Pledge of Allegiance by Councilman Shishka.
Almighty God, Master of the universe, we stand before you in prayer. Look favorably upon the mayor and honorable members of the City Council and our great city of Prescott. We beseech you, Almighty and merciful God, to extend your grace to each and every member of this body and bestow upon them good health and prosperity. The Jewish month which we are in is the month of Adar, which is the month of joy. Please bless us to find true joy in our work. Bless these distinguished individuals who have been chosen to make laws and decisions for the citizens of our city. Grant these public servants wisdom and understanding in their noble pursuit of justice and equality. Give them guidance so they will always be conscious of your presence and will strive to enact laws with honesty and integrity in accordance with your will. May they have wisdom to turn adversity into opportunity and to transform the hard challenges we face today into the seeds from which will sprout the growth of tomorrow. May our cities serve as a beacon of light for people of all faiths and walks of life. May Prescott help achieve the goals so powerfully stated in our Pledge of Allegiance so that America is truly one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would like to conclude with the first prayer that Jewish people say daily when they wake up from their slumber every morning. Moda ani lefanecha, melech chai v'kayim, shechazarta bi nishmasi bechemla rabba munasacha. Thankful am I before you, the living and eternal King, who has returned my soul to me with kindness. Great is your faith in me to accomplish my mission in bringing goodness to the world. Now let us say Amen. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Very good. Now we'll have a roll call, please.
Mayor Good,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Rusing,
Here.
Councilwoman Hall. Here. Councilman Montoya,
Here.
Councilman Moore,
Here.
Councilman Sischka,
Here.
and Councilman Tenney.
Here.
All are present.
Thank you very much. I have one proclamation to present. Mr. Burgadich, if you will approach the podium here, I'd like to read this and present it to you. I'm going to sit down here a little bit easier for you, sir. I have to get a different kind of microphone. This proclamation is being presented to John Murgadich as the centennial celebration on March 1st, 2022. Whereas in addition to being a wonderful and generous father and grandfather, John Murgadich served proudly in the United States Navy as an aviator for 30 years, flying the Super Constellation for the last 12 years of his career. And whereas he was in 3 major wars, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. And whereas he has been a resident of Prescott since his retirement in 1971, which is when I came back from Vietnam, and loves it here, and whereas he was a local business owner during the 70s, now therefore I feel good, Mayor of the City of Prescott, do hereby recognize March 1st, 2022 as the John Murgadich Centennial Celebration.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Is there anything you'd like to say?
Well, I enjoyed Prescott so much from the time we came here in '71. There were only a few cars on the road then. I hope and pray that they diminish more as time goes by. It's the only thing I can say, hoping for something good to happen, but I don't know how you're going to make it work.
We're just trying to slow people down and drive safely.
That's the trouble. You read the paper like yesterday's paper, and you hear the sad news of 2 adults lost and 2 children badly injured, very small. But it is a really unsightly thing to have happen. And white people are mainly from California, brought their habits with them, I think.
That's enough, Dad.
It's called no filter.
When you get to 100, you can say anything you want.
Yeah. Look at him, he doesn't even have a cane or a walker.
He has a cane.
Does he have a cane? Oh, boy. He's pretty alert, too.
Yeah, nothing like flying an airplane. I'll tell you.
Thank you. Congratulations.
I'll tell you why I'm warning you. I just warn you because it's very important. When you get to be an old person and you're set to go somewhere else and they sit you down and you sit and sit and sit, you've lost it. I'm not kidding you. You're losing your legs. And it goes but fast. Too much to
Feel like
sit
that
in.
after council.
And I'm walking on. I can't see what else I'm doing.
Thank you.
Sir, that's an honor. Okay, we'll now move on to the open call to the public. City Clerk?
During the open call to the public, members of the public may address council on matters not included on the agenda. Please complete a green speaker card and submit to me prior to the meeting. Speakers are limited to 4 minutes, and the call to the public will be limited to 40 minutes in total. Again, pursuant to ARS Section 38-431.01, members of the council may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda, so therefore they will not respond to questions or have an open dialogue with regard to items brought up during the open call to the public. At this point, Mayor, I do not have any green cards submitted.
There's one.
Nancy Bewley.
It's me again. It's been 6 weeks since I came up originally. And I just want to kind of air a little bit more of where we are, what we're doing. Last 2 weeks ago, I mentioned that we had 2 big hurdles finalized, the bridge over the Willow Creek entrance and the fire hydrant issues. We have hired a fire protection plan engineer. They are not easy to come by. They are not inexpensive to come by. And their scope of timeline is not easy to get things done anytime quick. My legal representative spoke with the Community Development Department on Monday, Valentine's Day. I don't believe any of you were invited to partake. That was unfortunate. But as I said 2 weeks ago, I had been trying to extend the Laurel branch of a two-way conversation. That meeting was met a little bit snarky, as my guy said, a little bit the negative worst-case scenario of all of it. I drafted a business plan stating that I plan on doing 80 to 85 people, 99 at the maximum with professional wait staff. That seems to not be their desire. They want to calculate me for 322 people in 1,600 square feet. I don't know what the size of your homes are, but I would never entertain 322 people in my 1,600 square foot home. One of the other things that was opposed was the question of using a catering sterno, that this would be the only fuel source in my building during an event. This is the kind that you get from the dollar store, the $1.25 store now. I've emptied it, there's nothing hazardous in it, but you can put it in your pile for takeaway if you want. It's got a cover, it's got a wick, and then it's maintained in a metal container, which goes under a metal container, which has another bit of water and another metal container. So I don't know why a chafing dish and a sterno would not be allowed. But I was touched by the rabbi. I know my time is closing. I was touched by the rabbi's prayer that said every morning upon waking that my soul is here at this earth to come with kindness. Ladies and gentlemen, I am a kind person. I have done good throughout this community for a long time, and I would not ask to be signing something to the city of Prescott about my intentions if they were not true. I have to answer to my maker. I have questions that I have to follow in my religious pursuit of life that make me be an honest person in my personal, my spiritual, and my business endeavors. And it would be my hope that you please take the laurel branch and reach it back to me. We are into 9 months now. I don't know if there's an ulterior motive with the Willow Creek Inn of what needs to be done or what somebody thinks they're gonna get if I fail. But I need to not fail. This community needs to have this building open and to do what it's designed to do and to be to be a wonderful, iconic, historic place where we can all have wonderful experiences for our loved ones. So with that, we hope to not see you in 2 weeks. Hopefully our fire protection plan will be done and completed, and we'll be able to have our open house. And it's 60 years this year that that building was moved. So
Thank you.
appreciate your time.
That's all, Mayor.
Anyone else? No. Well, thank you very much. Then we'll move on to the consent agenda. Does anyone have any items on consent that they want to pull from the agenda as a whole? Seeing none, then I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move we accept consent agenda items 8A through 8E.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. How about me?
Passes 7-0.
All right, next we'll move on to the regular agenda.
We actually have a liquor license first.
Oh, we got liquor licenses here. All right, so we'll move to 9A.
Public hearing and consideration for an acquisition of control Series 12 liquor license application from Scott Allen Butler, applicant for Rosati's, location 207 West Willis Street. The application fees have been paid. The signs have been posted for the required 20 days. Staff has reviewed the applications and determined that they're in compliance, and no public comments have been received.
Is the applicant present?
Yes, sir.
Want to come up and tell us about what your change of use is, or?
Sure. Change of ownership, essentially the same use as the license that was prior to me taking over. I purchased the restaurant December 1st from prior ownership. We don't sell a lot of liquor. It's about 2% of our total sales. Beer and wine only is what we serve.
Well, I know I've been in there many times and got great pizzas, that's for sure.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Well, thank you very much. We wish you a lot of success.
Thank you.
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
A motion and a second, please vote.
Passes 7-0.
Mayor, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Mayor, I move to approve liquor license number 175748 for an acquisition of control Series 12 restaurant liquor license for Rosati's, location 207 West Willow Street.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, please vote.
Passes 7-0.
Very good. Now we can move on to the regular agenda.
Legislative update.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I am Tyler Goodman with the City Manager's Office, here with the legislative update. We'll dive right in with the one that we covered most 2 weeks ago, which is House Bill 2674, Municipal Zoning by Right Housing. That bill, as we discussed, it was happening in the moments we were discussing it 2 weeks ago. It was not brought into committee, so it was withdrawn or held in committee. And in its place, over the following couple of weeks, a strike everything amendment bill was offered. For those maybe not familiar with strike everything amendments, it means that they take all the language out of one bill and they replace it with different language. And it still continues in its process where it made it through. So in this case, it didn't go to committee yet, but they did do a strike everything, which then went to committee. And it establishes a 10-member study committee in the legislature and appropriates $300,000 to pay for that committee to do some work, some studies, to hire an economist to help them to talk about affordable housing, housing supply, and do an analysis to really figure out what's the issue and where can some reasonable measures perhaps be brought forward for future legislation in coming years. That version of the bill passed out of the House Appropriations 10-3. At this point, the league doesn't have any concerns with this. In fact, 2 of the representatives of the 10 are going to be from cities, so we'll have an interest in that, and we'll stay informed as that moves through the process. The next one down, Senate Bill 1634, is also a
Well,
strike.
Tyler, I hope that some of those city representatives actually come from cities in the rural part of the state. and don't have to continually deal with the control of the larger cities.
I agree.
So maybe you can pass that recommendation on to Barry Aarons and suggest that maybe some of our rural cities have a chance to weigh in on this.
I will do that.
Thanks.
The next one is 1634. It's also a strike everything bill. It has to do with affordable housing. This is the version that the league, through basically their own study committee, created. So this has a lot of city input. And what it has come out to be is cities and towns over 100,000. So obviously we would not be in the consideration for this, but those over that population threshold would have to select at least 4 of a list of about 20 items. Some of them are reducing parking regulations for affordable housing, providing density bonuses near major transit areas, allowing accessory dwelling units in single-family zoned areas. There's a lot of things on that list that typically I think cities are okay with if they have the choice of choosing for their community what's best for them. So again, this wouldn't affect us, but overall, this is the league's attempt to bring legislation forward in a proactive manner instead of letting maybe bad elements of 2674 come back in different versions of bills throughout the session. So that's their strategy in that. That is in a Senate appropriations. I believe it was withheld from committee this morning. It may need some amendments. I'm not sure what happened there, but we'll keep an eye on it. Senate Bill 1198, this has to do with our ability to lobby at the legislature. Under this bill, we would not be able to contract for lobbying services or do our own lobbying at the state legislature, if you can imagine that. That did pass the Senate Government Committee 4-3. I don't think it has the legs to make it through. It's a political statement. I think it's some retribution against cities for fighting against the tax changes and the percentages shared last year. There's some of that going on. So I don't think it's going to go anywhere, but I did want to bring it up in case it does. House Bill 2609, this is the ambulance service one. It deals with the certificate of necessity issuing process, and what it does is allow fire departments or districts temporary authority to provide needed ambulance service if there's a proven need. It actually gets very more detailed than that, but that's the premise behind it. That passed its committee 12-1, and it has pretty good support overall.
I just thought it was unusual that it went to military affairs first.
Yes, in fact, I may have missed, there's probably more to that committee, but maybe I didn't type it all out. But yeah, that is an interesting committee. Sometimes it's just where it can be heard reasonably quickly or maybe with a favorable vote. That does happen. Vacation rentals, as I said in previous updates, there's a lot of them. I think there's 2, 4, 5 just right here. These are the main ones. They all deal with regulating vacation rentals to some degree or another. None of them is truly the bill that the League of Cities would want to see, ideally. Cities like Sedona, Page, Fountain Hills, a lot that have some serious issues with short-term rentals. There is a bill by Representative Kavanaugh, the second from the bottom, 2663, that would give cities the ability to limit the percentage of vacation rentals based on total housing stock. So that's further along the lines of allowing cities to manage that more reasonably. It passed out of committee, but because the governor is so opposed to really any large changes to vacation rental law, I don't think it's going to make it all the way, but we'll see what versions do come out of the process. House Bill 2276, this is expanding Senate Bill 1487 from years past. And if you're unfamiliar with that bill, it really, it's onerous on cities because if the council, correct Matt, if the council makes a decision, official decision as a body, that is questionable as far as constitutionality, any state legislator can say to the Attorney General, hey, I want you to investigate that city, this decision the council made. If it's found unconstitutional, we could end up losing state shared revenues if we don't remediate it, change things, and that. So this would expand that to not only be council decisions, but it could, these complaints could be filed against us if we include written policies, rules, and regulations, from an administrative side of things. So that expands that bill and is obviously not good for cities and towns. It did pass out of its committee 7-6. It's awaiting some floor action there in the House. We'll see what kind of traction it gets. I'm not quite sure on this one yet. Senate Bill 1082. This has to do with ASRS, the Arizona State Retirement System. Employers would be able to prepay the employer's required pension contributions directly to ASRS for deposit in the trust or a Section 115 trust, which we've talked about with the council probably about a year ago, maybe. It guarantees, so cities could either choose between a guaranteed rate of return or the rate that ASRS actually earns. And if you have any more questions, I know Mark has been following that bill. Does anybody have more questions on that one specifically?
Yeah, I'd like to find out what this guaranteed rate of return would be, especially on a IRS 115 section option.
Okay, Mayor and Council, yeah, it's an interesting bill, and it offers quite exciting opportunity. As you know, compared to PSPRS, ASRS is an agent multiple employer plan, so we're all in one pool. So prepaying individually really doesn't benefit you. Through this bill, it does. It would give us payoff we currently have about $25 million worth of unfunded liability. The pension is about 71% funded, so it's pretty well funded, but we could pay that off. They have a guaranteed option, as Tyler mentioned, or a open option. And whether it's through 115 or directly to ASRS, I believe the guaranteed option is just through ASRS. What you would do is the city would issue $25 million worth of bonds, say at a 3% interest rate for a 25-year period. Currently, the guaranteed calculation would give us a guaranteed 5.75% earnings on that. So the differential between the 3% and the 5.75 would reduce our annual contribution requirements to ASRS, saving all of our funds some money. It's an interesting opportunity. It's something that we're going to talk about as we go through the budget process, if this passes, about putting some contingency in the budget if council wants to make this play, if you will, in the next budget year. It's an arbitrage play where we can borrow taxable. It'd be taxable money. They wouldn't be tax exempt because it's an arbitrage play, and the IRS always doesn't let you earn arbitrage on tax exempt debt. So we borrow money at 3, we'd earn 5.7 on it, and that differential would help our funds by reducing our pension costs for the next 25 years, at which time the liability would be gone and we would be just the normal pension costs.
Almost falls in that category. Sounds too good to be true.
Doesn't it?
Examine the details on it.
Supposedly we've talked, some investment bank or some bond people I've talked to have talked with ASRS, and they are pretty guaranteed at the 5.75. They've shock tested it, and they feel that they can guarantee that rate. You know, if they're willing to guarantee that rate, it might be worth taking the risk that they'll actually do better than that. But that's a council decision later on in the process. This would give you the option to go either way.
Well, we'll watch the progress of that and then look at the details, what the options might be.
Right, and we'll make sure to include some contingencies in the budget so we can act on it, because obviously as we move into a inflationary approach by the Federal Reserve, interest rates are not going to be favorable to this trade too long. So we'll need to act on it quickly.
Extremely likely. Thank you, Mark.
And as you can see, that bill passed out of the Senate almost unanimously. They had 3 no votes, but no votes. Dropping down, PSPRS drop bills. These are, if you're unfamiliar with drop, it's basically the ability for a retiree to receive a lump sum payment at the end of a certain period of time after they reach 20 years or more of service. Typically, this is seen, it no longer applies to current tiers, let's say, but for PSPRS, I believe it was, maybe there's a date in there, from 2012. If you were hired on or before January 1st of 2012, you were eligible for this. Either of these bills would extend the drop at some extent from either 60 to 84 months or from 60 to 84 plus, allowing later tiers to now have the option of participating in the drop. Overall, it's seen as a burden on the system if you add these benefits to PSPRS. So with that in mind, it's not expected that these will pass. But they have gotten out of committee. So, and one has actually passed the House, the 2337. So while there's some support, it's not generally thought that they will make it through the entire process, but we'll keep an eye on these. And the last three are bills that we've been covering since day one of the updates: tobacco, guns in public buildings, and fireworks. Each have either passed committee or passed their chamber, their respective chambers, and are going through the process. I also wanted to mention a couple of bills that Barry Aaron shared with me. They have to do with an Arizona Water Authority. There's not a lot of details on these on purpose. It really comes out of the governor's office and has legislative leadership on board with it. But the purpose of these bills is to provide oversight for funding a statewide and regional augmentation and infrastructure projects at more than $25 million. It would be governed by a 9-member board. There's not, like I said, a whole lot of details behind it, but there's a House version and a Senate version. And we'll see if it comes through the budget process, if there's money appropriated to that. But because of certain things, a bill, I think, needs to be passed to organize that. So we're keeping an eye on it. We're not sure of all the ramifications of it, but it's on the radar. So with that, I'm happy to answer any more questions.
Yeah, Tyler, the ramifications that you do know about on the water situation, what are your feelings about that?
Well, the legislation itself is very brief. Honestly, it's 12 lines maybe of a bill, so there's not a lot to it, but it does say that they would have water authority over any water providers. We are a water provider. So maybe the intent is to help.
That caught my attention too, Councilman Shishka. Yeah.
So on its face, maybe it's to help provide infrastructure and funding and statewide water resource, appealing to some of those concerns. But if it has authority over water providers, what does that mean? To what degree? Right. And what does that mean for us? We're just not sure yet. So we're waiting anxiously on that one.
Go ahead, Councilman Montoya.
Tyler, do you know who the sponsor of that bill is?
Yes.
Are there sponsors associated with it?
There are sponsors. The Senate version is sponsored by President Fan, and the House version, it's slipping my mind. I don't know.
Is it Gowan?
In fact, Griffin. I believe it's Griffin, Representative Griffin. Yeah.
Thank you.
I thought Senator Kerr was on that too, Sonny Kerr.
There could be co-sponsors as well. Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me what this fireworks bill is all about?
Yes, that is the bill that would allow us to regulate when fireworks are allowed to be used in city limits. And it limits people from using fireworks to only New Year's and 4th of July between 10 and midnight, I think. Otherwise, we could say no fireworks allowed any other night of the year.
Well, thank you for the update, Tyler. I know they got over, 1,400 bills they're going through. Every year it seems like we've got more and more to try to monitor, and sometimes just like this water authority. I mean, that caught my attention, and then I looked it up and there's nothing in it. So doesn't that make it a little bit concerning if you're going to create a water authority?
Find out what's in it after they pass it.
I've heard that before. I thought you had to have at least 2,000 pages before that qualified. But thank you, Tyler.
You're welcome.
All right, I guess we're moving on now to regular agenda item 10B.
Mr. Mayor, I ask for recusal and also disclose the fact that my spouse has an ownership interest in Rusing Square. Thank you.
I appreciate you disclosing that conflict.
Don't forget to ask me back into the room for the next agenda item, okay?
Here, will somebody remind me, please?
We can do that.
Are you going to take this?
Yes.
Adoption of ordinances for public trail easements in the Granite Creek corridor as follows. Number 1, ordinance number 2022-1792, an ordinance of the mayor and council of the city of Prescott, Yavapai County, Arizona, authorizing the acceptance of a public trail easement from Prescott Unified School District number 1 and authorizing the mayor and staff to execute any and all documents to effectuate said acceptance. And number 2, adoption of ordinance number 2022-1793, an ordinance of the mayor and council of the city of Prescott, Yavapai County, Arizona, authorizing the acceptance of a public trail easement from Roosing Properties and authorizing the mayor and staff to execute any and all documents to effectuate said acceptance.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Mayor and Council. Once again, Tyler Goodman with the City Manager's Office. If you've been following the saga of the Granite Creek Master Plan project, which has been going on for 3.5 years, we went out for grant funding last year. Simultaneously, we were doing engineering and design for the implementation, the trail improvements, the lighting, the access points, all of those things that we've discussed. And we were going for land and water conservation funding from the state. That is ultimately approved by the National Park Service. They received our application at the federal level, and after 8 weeks of back and forth and trying to get an answer from them, they said, it's really just your easements that aren't sufficient for the language we need to see in easements to be confident that this property will be in your hands, in your management forever. And so with that response, we said, well, we're happy to do it as quick as possible. And they said, well, the grant's already over, sorry. So because of that, and because of the high cost of the bids that came in for the project, we've postponed it to fiscal year 23. This piece is updating the public trail easements with Prescott Unified and with Roosing Properties. It will basically cover the stretch from Aubrey Street all the way up to Goodwin Street, which is a large chunk of the corridor. We've already had the agreement signed by the Roosings as well as PUSD. Their board has heard this, considered it, and approved it. So with that in mind, once we have this, we will resubmit our grant application, which is only missing these 2 pieces. It will be approved fairly quickly, we're told. With that in place, we'll secure the funding. We plan to go back out to bid this summer for that project and start construction in October. And of course, we'll be bringing that back in the budget process for the council as well. But that's what these easements are in regards to.
Very good. Thank you, Tyler. Councilman Montoya.
Tyler, I just had are there other easements that are needed, or is this is the sum total of what we need to secure that funding?
This is what we need. These are the 2. Otherwise, it's city right-of-way or city-owned property.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other concerns? Any public comment?
I do have 2 public comment cards, Mayor. The first is from Edward Bowe.
I know almost all of you. You all know who I am. I am interested in being the project manager on this project. I have a vision that I've given to you in a site plan of 30-foot easements right away that is necessary to bring that vision to fruition. Basically, it's 3 feet, 3 different pathways along the corridor, adjacent to a channel that would be 10 foot wide. The channel would potentially be able to hold water, not just flood water, but constant flow of water. I think that the project could come in well under budget because there is pride of place. Pride of place would represent the idea that volunteers would clean the vegetation and eliminate most of the issues that involve the channel itself and the banks of the channel. Also, there would be 11 feet of pathway. The outside path would be hardened. It would be for skateboarders. It would be for electric mobile vehicles and scooters, skateboarders, and bicycles. Inside that, there would be a 4
Mayor, I'm just potential open meeting law violation here. The item that has been agendized
Strictly
is
the
to
easements, right?
grant an easement,
Right.
and that's it. To the extent the gentleman wants to talk about his interest in the project, I think that'll be better represented when Leslie Dornville comes back and does her presentation. But right now, we're way off agenda.
All right, so I'll just
easements.
terminate then. Yeah, the easements would, I would need 30 feet to carry out the site plan I would envision as the best for creating a promenade, creating the most active trail in the city and the environs, and I think it's the right way to go. Thank you.
Tom Rusing.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I am Tom Rusing, and I am speaking on behalf of my parents, Russ and Rosemary Rusing. The latter just turned 100, and my family. A number of years ago, the city approached my dad requesting an easement on the property at Rusing Square, which is on Granite Creek at the corner of Goodwin and McCormick. And this was for a pedestrian bridge crossing of the creek, and he granted that easement. Recently, Joe Baines approached me regarding Granite Creek Corridor Improvement Project, but also about a modification of the easement to allow access to the creek. He was specifically interested in handicap access to the creek corridor and trail via our property. He felt the site was well suited for it. We as a family are excited about the Granite Creek Improvement Project and the benefit it will provide to the community and visitors, and we are happy to provide greater access to the area to our citizens and visitors with disability. We also appreciate the Park and Recs Department philosophy of having a light touch on the land as demonstrated by their management as demonstrated by their management of the trails and open space. This is evidenced in the plans for the corridor that keeps this area as a natural greenway in the midst of all the concrete, asphalt, and hardscape in the surrounding city. My father, Russ, was involved in efforts to support our citizens with disabilities and those disadvantaged for many years. He and 4 other individuals formed Prescott Charities, and one of its main beneficiaries was Yavapai Exceptional Industries. He worked closely with Brad Newman on funding and building facilities where these individuals worked, and on supervised group homes for men and women both in Prescott and Prescott Valley where they could live independently. Russ was also involved in the community cupboard which was housed at Rusing Square for many years. So in closing, we are happy to be involved in this project and to provide an easement for handicap access, and we are thankful for this to the city and especially Joe Baines for their leadership, vision, and hard work. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rusing. Any additional comments?
That's all, Mayor.
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that we adopt ordinances for public trail easements in the Granite Creek corridor. First of all, ordinance number 2022-1792 with Prescott Unified School District. Should we do these separately, Matt?
Separate.
Yes. Sarah?
Second.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Passes 6-0.
Go ahead.
Okay. Mayor, I move that we adopt ordinance number 2022-1793 with Rusing Properties.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Passes 6-0.
And there's a third one that we need to do as well. Is that?
That's it.
Do we?
Okay.
Don't forget to re-invite Council Member Rusing, or Mayor Pro Tem Rusing.
Thank you for the reminder. Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Approval of FNP 21-006, the final plat for Granite Dells Estates Phase 5.
All right.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is a request for final plat approval for Granite Dells Estates Phase 5, which is the last phase of Granite Dells Estates. For those of you who have been around a while, you're probably tired of me saying Granite Dells Estates. This proposal is for final plat of the last section, which is in actually the southwest corner of the area that's part of Granite Dells Estates. Depicted on the map, the black boundary is the original Granite Dells Estates area, and the area proposed for final plat today is the red area in the southwest corner. Just to give you a look at some of the developments occurred in the area, and also the topography, a lot of rolling terrain, some washes are part of the development. Property is all zoned single family 9 PAD. That property was all rezoned and a new master plan was done several years ago, compressing all of the development into the central portion and the western portion of the property and leaving a small piece of property, about a fifth overall of the property, as unsubdivided and outside of the master plan. So I'll show you that in just a moment. So this is the current master plan. Again, the area to be final platted is in that southwest corner, and the area left out of the master plan is the white area that's not covered in green or the grayish blue color of this particular final plat. As you can see from the master plan, the lot layout has a series of cul-de-sacs. These are attached to roadways that provide connectivity internally and to the roadways that come and go through the subdivision. A little bit closer look at the preliminary plat. You can see the cul-de-sacs at the south end of all of the streets, the lots branching off of those and connecting up back to the major roadways throughout the subdivision. Primary difference between the proposed final plat and the preliminary plats and master plan lie with a branch in the area shown with the red circle. Instead of a single cul-de-sac, there are two branch cul-de-sacs, very short branch cul-de-sacs that provide equal number of lots. Overall, the subdivision complies with the requirements, and I'll talk about those in just a moment, for final plats in conformance with the preliminary plat, given the relatively minor arrangement of the cul-de-sacs at the end. No increase in the overall number of lots. The exterior boundaries of the subdivision have not been changed. The exterior connections of streets to the subdivision have not changed. The average lot size has not increased or decreased more than 15%, but in this particular case, it is a planned area development and they actually have the flexibility to vary more than that. And as we may have noted earlier, the subdivision is a relatively large percentage of open space, and overall of about 43% in this last phase is open space. Many of those open space areas are contiguous to other areas within the subdivision, which allows for good pathways for migration of animals and for water flow from one area to another through the channels that naturally exist out there. And again, the nature and character of the subdivision have not changed between preliminary and final plat. I have a motion, but a couple of other bits of information. We've talked several times about Granite Estates and their final plats. They will be required to have abrogation easements at the time of building permits for anything within the final plats as they came forward. As you recall, we operated under a different legal ruling for the first few phases, but several years ago, or a little over a year ago, we had a new legal opinion that said that previous opinion did not address the language in the Land Development Code. The Land Development Code says you will have an easement no later than at the time of building permit issuance. So we are holding them to that standard as part of this process. There is an associated water service agreement, which I believe Gwen will talk to you about in just a moment. I would be happy to answer any questions you may have about the final plat. It is in conformance with preliminary plat based on your criteria. And we do have a representative, I believe, from the developer if necessary. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Councilman Moore.
Thank you, Mayor. George, I know I ask this question a lot probably, but it's a concern of mine. When it says there's going to be 43% of open space, does that mean that area is going to be undisturbed in the construction process, or it's going to be disturbed and then left open afterwards? I mean, it's going to retain the nature and character of it as it is now, or is that going to be affected heavily with the construction of that development, and then it will be left as open space?
The majority of the property that's left as open space, and you can see the green that's shown in the drawing, will be undisturbed by the development, unless it's something specific to utility connections. Oftentimes, the utilities will connect by easements between those cul-de-sacs or between the streets. There may be some disruption or modification that occurs with those utilities. The vast majority of the open space will remain undisturbed.
Thank you.
I'd just like to make one comment. We seem to be using the word final a lot and last, and I just would like to remind everybody that there's a lot of undeveloped land, especially to the east, and I believe it's already been annexed and has water already allocated to it. So I don't know if you want to call this final. We're splitting hairs, maybe.
It'll be the final plat within the master plan community of Granite Dells Estates. You're right, the area that was left out of the master planned area is separate and not part of Granite Dells Estates per the master plan. So that is some future development that will
Possibly
occur.
more to come. Okay, thank you.
George, I'm just curious why the redesign of that one, what was originally a single cul-de-sac, and now it's been split into two.
This area.
Yeah, where it says sheet 7. Down here. So that was originally one cul-de-sac.
It was originally one cul-de-sac and a longer stretch of cul-de-sac, and I do not know exactly why it was changed. I do know that one of the benefits of the change, if you look back and forth between the two, is that there would be far less grading into that open space between those two arrangements, and possibly could have been a savings for the developer as far as cost goes. Shorter streets, shorter extensions of water and sewer utilities, and less impact to the natural areas in between. Can you?
I'm sure they had good justification.
We do have an engineer here.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Kevin Horton with Line Engineering. That original design, that ridge falls off pretty sharply there. As you can see, it falls off sharply to the west. So we wanted to pull that back because there were some substantial fill slopes once we did the grading. So it was less disturbance within the open area.
Yeah, I was looking at the contour line, so I just thought that was a kind of an unusual redesign at the last moment, but makes sense.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'd like to make an additional comment. We seem to be leaving out fire stations from these planning sessions. We just never address that issue. And this is just another example of us approving more and more houses, and we're already behind in our fire stations. So I just feel that we need to start addressing that situation.
Mayor Pro Tem, just to bring you up to speed, one of the work sessions in March will be devoted to fire station placement based on call volume. So we'll be discussing it next month.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's way past time to identify appropriate locations to make sure we have public safety response times that are equivalent to the rest of the city. But that usually has to come at the time that the PAD is put together.
Normally, that negotiation would occur during the preliminary plat process at the very beginning. So that's when you set aside properties for public use. And we have had most of the developers approaching us with preliminary plats willing to negotiate such thing, but we need to know that placement in advance in order to be able to negotiate.
Yeah, we have to move past willingness to an actual identification of location and acquisition of that property to the city.
Let's do it.
Very good. All right, any other questions, any public comment?
No, Mayor.
All right, I'll entertain a motion on this.
Mayor, I move approval of FNP 21-006, the final plat of Granite Dells Estates Phase 5.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Passes 7-0.
All right, moving on to item 10D.
Water service application number 2, WSA 21-019, submitted by Granite Dells Estates Properties, Inc., Prescott, location APN 103-04-009X, comprising 98.87 acres in Township 14 North, Range 01 West, Section 6, Southeast 14, and Southwest 14 in part.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Gwen Rowich with Public Works. This item is related to the previous council item where you approved the final plat for Granite Dells Estates Phase 5. This application is for the approval of the water for Granite Dells Estates Phase 5, which consists of 67 individual single-family homes. Each home would be separately metered. The property is within the boundaries of the procedural pre-annexation agreement for the Granite Dells Estates development. To date, the city council has approved 1,316 dwelling units, and with the addition of this 67 dwelling units in Phase 5, only one lot will remain within the approved master plan. The water demand analysis was submitted by Lion Engineering at 0.17 acre feet per home for a total of 11.39 acre feet for Phase 5. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. This issue, or this item, went before the Water Issues Subcommittee on February the 1st and was forwarded with an approval, unanimous approval, 3-0.
All right, any comments? Comments, concerns? None? Councilman Montoya.
Gwen, I asked you this question in an email, but I just was curious. We've been spending a lot of time talking about the water budget proposed in the new draft water policy. How would that policy affect a water service application like this?
So if there was a water budget in play under the water management policy right now, this project would not be a part of the water budget because it has an existing contract.
So the development agreement kind of supersedes the water budget in that case? Okay. I just wanted that clarity. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think 11.39 is pretty modest for that number of units, and obviously there's going to be a lot of open space that won't be irrigated, so that's good. All right, I'll entertain a motion on that one.
Mayor, I move to approve WSA 21-019.
Second.
Okay, motion and second, please vote.
Passes 7-0.
All right, moving on to item 10E.
Approval of City Contract Number 2019-161A6, an amendment to City Contract Number 2019-161 with Fan Environmental and Fan Contracting Joint Venture for Construction Manager at Risk Services to construct the intermediate pump station and site infrastructure, and approval of City Contract Number 2019-16A3, an amendment to City Contract Number 2019-160 with Waterworks Engineers for post-design services for the intermediate pump station construction project.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Craig Dosseth with Public Works.
Say that all in one breath?
Just about.
Good.
This item, this project is a major project for us associated with the City of Prescott and our water system, not only in regards to magnitude, but what it will do in regards to providing improvements to the water system and our ability to move water and definitely bring in the water production that we have in the airport zone area. That's one of the key elements to this pump station when we get it online, is to be able to bring the benefits of that water production closer to the recharge facility, closer to the city uses, and introduce that into the entire city's area. So this item, as Sarah mentioned, is to approve the amendment, number 6, with the CMAR services, which will be for the construction of the intermediate pump station, as well as post-design construction services. So a little history on the project, what we've already brought forward with contracts and or completed as far as pieces of the project. So we had off-site water main phase 1, off-site water main phase 2, brought forward GMP number 4, which included tanks and piping directly associated with the tanks. Then GMP number 5 for early material procurement. And now today is GMP number 6 for the actual pump station and site construction. So as far as where the project is, so over on the right side of the screen is Willow Creek Road, new Willow Creek Road, and Warrior Way with Trinity School. Signal is right at this location. So the phase 1 offsite pipeline connected onto existing main line that we had out in the ranch and brought that over in order to provide the service for the Trinity School project. That was broken out specifically from the phase 2 because of timing in order to get that water there available for the school use. Then we brought forward and have completed the phase 2 offsite water main extension. So that connected into the water system in the end of Warrior Way, brought it around the school onto the future Jenna Lane alignment out here in the Deepwell Ranch area. And then we picked it up again where phase 1 started and took it to the west to the intermediate pump station site. So we are out there in the open ranch, almost a mile from Willow Creek Road to the west. This steps out a little further, give you Pioneer Parkway, Willow Creek Road. Again, we're all the way out here in the ranch. One of the items that we brought back quite some time ago was swapping of the land also. This parcel right here and here were original parcels that the city purchased from Deepwell Ranch to consider for construction of this pump station, as well as an electrical substation is what they were originally slated for. In working with the landowner, and as development was progressing with Deepwell Ranch, then it came up whether that was our preferred location. And design had continued far enough to know that we were not bound to that site. We did not have to use that site. And actually, by considering land swap with the Deepwell Ranch and the James family, by moving it to this site, then it reduced our pipeline costs in the magnitude of about $1 million, because we were not extending 48-inch pipelines from this location all the way over here and back. We're now able to connect on to the pipelines that are in this alignment. Right there, you can see the scar. We can hook right onto those in there. And then the pipelines that we built over here with phase 1 and phase 2 offsite were smaller pipelines, significantly lower cost associated with those. This is the site just here recently in January. Gives you a little bit of idea here. This is where offsite pipeline phase 2 is installed underneath this temporary Millings roadway, comes down. So this is our entire site for where this pump station is going to be built in there. And this is one of the rings for the water tanks that we have already brought forward. And to give you an idea of the magnitude of that, this is the diameter of the water tank versus a dozer sitting right in the middle of it. Those are the two 6 million gallon tanks that you already granted approval towards proceeding with the construction on those. And the subcontractor that will be building those tanks, constructing those tanks, will be moving on site very soon there. Now we're at the phase of actually to build the pump stations and the entire site that will go with it then. So, and I say pump stations, as this is the intermediate pump station, which will allow us to send water from the airport zone into the entire city to be utilized by the entire city. It also will bring water that's sent from Chino to that site. So it will send that water or the airport water in for the entire city to use it, as well as on the other side, so it's a dual, the other side of the pump station is what we call the Zone 110 pump station, and then that will serve water to Trinity and the entire corridor along the western side of Willow Creek Road as projects continue along that corridor. So that is part of this, to combine it into two locations and serve the dual needs. Some other things, this intermediate pump station is designed to work in tandem with the water production facility replacement project that's currently underway in Chino Valley. So it's going to create the additional system redundancy, improve pumping efficiency, and increase overall system reliability by providing the ability to pump water from the airport zone. It also significantly changes the dynamics of the water transmission system as far as sending water into town. Currently, we leave Chino Valley anywhere from 380 to 400 PSI. This project will change that pipeline usage. It will be running in the 160 to 180 range, and then the other half goes out of the intermediate station. So that reduces the working pressure of the pipeline. It reduces the stress on the pipeline. It increases the life expectancy of that pipeline. So it's a multifold improvement or benefit from this project. There is one more piece to be able to completely finish this project, and that is APS conduit and power supply to it. So there'll be a separate item that'll be forthcoming for the construction of the APS offsite electrical conduit, and our project manager and staff is waiting on the final cost proposal from APS on that. We tentatively have the number that we're in the $600,000 range for that piece. Funding for this project has been budgeted over multiple fiscal years, from FY21 through FY24. Is available through debt service and from the water fund. So for debt service, the Water Infrastructure Finance Authority is being utilized with a low interest loan from them. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
So Craig, we're moving the location of this pump station from that rectangular section farther west.
Yes, we did that when we did the land swap. And that's probably going on 2 years ago now when we did that.
So all the concerns about height and elevation and impact on the takeoff areas from the airport haven't changed?
No, there'd be significantly better. The original site back here is quite a bit higher than where this is. As you traverse the temporary roadway that we have going across the land here, you finally come to right here. So this is, you're cresting over the hill, and our whole site is down in a hole. So it is better in that means than this site. We're further to the west from the airport, and we'll also be at a lower elevation.
So this is going to service expanded development in the Westwood area, and then some of that proposed development in the southwest corner of Deepwell Ranch.
Westwood is currently served off of Zone 12, which is the airport area, but it serves Trinity. Was too high. It will serve Trinity, and it will serve down the Willow Creek corridor as well as out to the west, depending what happens out there. It also, that we're going to change how the existing system works in Pinion Oaks. So that Zone 110 pump station will be serving down to the Zone 110 area. I'm trying to
Hidden
remember
Hills.
the rocks.
Hidden Hills as well.
Dr. Scari's.
Whispering Rocks.
Hidden Hills, no, will not be. It is at a higher elevation. It's in a different zone also, but it'll be able to. Currently, we have multiple PRV stations that serve the Pinion Oaks area, as well as Embry-Riddle. And with this Zone 110 pump station, we'll be able to remove those and serve all of that off of this pump station, so we don't pump water all the way up to a high pressure and then strip it off in order to feed the people. We'll just pump it to the pressure needed directly, and we're not wasting energy that way.
All right, Councilmember, Mayor Pro Tem Rusing.
Thank you. Craig, I just have a question about the cost. I just did some quick math today. We're approving $15.5 million. Earlier this year, when we were talking about this project, you kind of gave me an off-the-cuff estimate of the total cost was going to be about $30 million. Could you please clarify what the total cost of the project is on completion?
Just a sec, I'll see if I have that available. consideration of this, we're at the 14. We've already approved 10.5 on materials and 11.5 on tank construction, and that is higher than that 30 million that we had it estimated at for our budget. And unfortunately, that's the realm. That's where we're at in the world in regards to materials and cost of construction for something like this, to this magnitude.
So it's going to be more than 30 million, the WIF alone?
Yes, finance is in contact with WIFA in order to consider increasing that loan from them.
Okay, and then in the future, you mentioned that this would serve areas to the west. Is this going to eventually serve Stringfield Ranch, or are they going to be served through another zone?
They would be fed by a different zone. That's what we call the Northwest Regional Tank off of Williamson Valley Road and Pioneer Parkway.
Okay, thank you.
You have a question?
I think I'm good.
All right, any other questions, any public comment?
No, Mayor.
All right, I guess we're ready to entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that we approve city contract number 2019-161A6.
Second.
A motion and a second, please vote.
Passes 7-0.
Thank you.
And Mayor, I move that we approve city contract number 2019-160A3.
Is that?
Want to give you a second?
Second.
All right, I think Shishka was first there, or he was first on the second. Okay. We have a motion and a second, please vote.
Passes 7-0.
Thank you. All right, moving on to item 10F.
Approval of city contract number 2022-154, proposal for continued ephemeral stream flow monitoring within Big Chino Subbasin with Salt River Valley 154-154 Water Users Association and Salt River Project Agricultural Improvement and Power District.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm Leslie Grazer with Public Works. I'm just going to run through the opening paragraph on this for the sake of the record. We'll move to a map and financials and be ready for questions. Let me pull this map real quick so I have it ready. I'll just move it to the screen. Drag it up. Okay, dragging. No.
Go right here.
Oh,
Right here, ephemeral.
and drag.
Just click on it. There you go.
Beautiful. Thank you. That's why I started that first. Okay, for an item summary, on September 19th, 2012, the council approved comprehensive agreement number 1 with Salt River Project in the town of Prescott Valley, providing for the implementation of an enhanced groundwater and surface water monitoring system, generating data for a groundwater flow model. So we're talking 8 years ago or more, we've been working on this project. It's a large one. As part of the comprehensive agreement number 1, the city entered into various scientific contracts to gather data. This included city contract number 2014-001 and its amendments. So this was the first contract we entered into to get equipment on the ground and start recording data, specifically for ephemeral streamflow monitoring. Today's item is to replace this contract 2014-001 and its amendments in its entirety. So looking at the map, what we're basically doing is all these sites that do have hydrographs or some kind of charting with them, we're going to drop down to one piece of equipment instead of 2 at each one. So we needed to have a time elapse at one point to know what was coming through one gauge, cross-check it against the other one, and we could do various things with the data. So most of these are staying, except for they're going down to one piece of equipment in those areas. And then we have other areas, such as George Wood Canyon, the one out at the Forest Service land, Guype Well over here. Those are either gone already or will be retired in time when they break. So the intent here is to continue with the plan to potentially rerun the groundwater flow model every 3 years. And to do that, you have to have new data sets coming in. Otherwise, you're kind of running the same thing over and over again. So we're making decisions now, deciding which equipment needs to stay and become long-term records, and which equipment we've learned enough from and can be set aside, or if they were, as an example, problematic. The Guype well was a great location for a while, but the casing itself is failing. It's hard to get measurements out of that well. So we're going to let that one go at this point. So the financial impact for this is that we are the housing agency for the financials for this project among the 3 parties. All the parties paid into this. We're not making any more contributions, so we're working off an account at this time. For this new contract, which will be 2022-154, the amount is $175,735, and the city's portion of that, because it's a split agreement, cost-wise for the city, it'll be $57,147.21. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have on this item.
Mayor, I have a question. Sure. Leslie, is this one of those processes that will go on forever kind of thing?
It feels like forever when you've been working on a project for 8 years. It will be the decision of the city with the other partners. So if you recall, we were having struggles with our decision order to bring Big Chino water supplies into the portfolio. It was challenged at a court level, basically, administrative hearings. That kind of rolled and kept going, and the decision was to work cooperatively on science as to if this pumping potentially by the city would have an impact on the Verde headwaters. So we've gotten 8 years out. Will this continue to go? We're going to have the model come out. We'll have scenarios run on the model. The parties will have to decide, and the city will have to decide what it plans to do into the future. So if you want to continue to look at this water supply and figure out how you're going to enact it and when you're going to start moving water supplies, you probably want to stay in discussions with your partners. If there is a decision not to do that, then you have to still sit down with the partners. At this point, the language reads in the contract that we'll rerun that model every 3 years.
And does ephemeral stream flow directly affect groundwater flow?
Ephemeral, yes. So if, ephemeral means that when there's a storm, water comes down a creek that is typically dry. So those dry reaches will absorb water, and whatever it can absorb, depending on gradients, depending on geology, will flow on through. So we have plenty of those in our area up here in the mountainous areas that we live in.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilman Montoya.
Leslie, we've heard a lot about the release of this report, and particularly Councilman Sushka, Mayor Pro Tem Rusing, and I have been talking about it at the Water Issues Subcommittee. I'm just curious, do we have a kind of a deadline or a timeline for when we might see some of this information?
So the contract ends with Golder, who is the firm that's doing the groundwater flow modeling, on July 15th of 2022. So there's no additional time frame that we're going to build into this. So that's when the model becomes available, and that's when the report on the model becomes available. So
when will we? I mean, so when will this council see it then? I guess is maybe my question in a more direct way.
We talk in Public Works and decide if it goes to a subcommittee first, if it goes to the full council, if it's an in-house work session. This will be best done probably with people who are groundwater flow modelers coming in and describing what they did, and lots of pictures. Otherwise, the mathematics of it will be numbing. So.
And am I correct in assuming, I mean, this is a report that's going to go to all 3 partners in this project at the same time, essentially. So SRP will see the same data set that we're seeing. Prescott Valley will see the same data set that we're seeing as well.
Absolutely. It's a shared product. And then what each community does with it will, those discussions need to be held internally.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. Thank you, Leslie. I'd like to direct your attention to the proposal, Section 3, Data Management and Access, specifically paragraph B, Data Access. The monitoring committee will be able to decide who receives access to the data. It seems to me that if we're using taxpayers' dollars to fund this study, why don't more people have access to the data?
The reasoning is that I think SRP will allow those who want to access the system. They just want to check who's coming and going out the door, the security door, so to speak. So this website, as it says, it's SRP secure, password protected, and web portal access. So I've filed, and I don't think it's just because it's a city representative on the project, but I have to file that I'm going in and out the door and have a password set up through them. So I can look into that and see if it's generally open access to that platform.
Yeah, I was thinking of like CWAG, if they wanted to have access to this data.
Yeah, if you don't mind, let me follow up. I hadn't thought about that one in a while.
Okay, thank you, Leslie.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's important. All right, any further comments? Any public comments?
No, Mayor.
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that we approve city contract number 2022-154.
Second.
All right, should we flip for that? No. I have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Passes 7-0.
All right, moving on to item, where are we? Item G.
Approval of city contract number 2022-152 with FCI Constructors for the northeastern stair tower replacement.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Tim Legler, Deputy Director of Recreation Services. So today, can I go over the memo a little bit, and then I've got some slides to show you guys. So basically, this is asking for approval to move forward with replacing the final stair set at the parking garage, which is the northeast corner. It's the only one that hasn't been replaced so far. It's in pretty bad shape. So working with FCI constructors to do this, the project came in a cost of $523,374. There is a 4% contingency in that. Obviously, with ripping stuff down structure-wise, you never know what you might run into. So hopefully we don't have to use it, but it is there. So basically what this is, the parking garage opened in 2005, and since then, 2019, they've replaced the other stairwells. One was in 2017 for $332,000, and 2018, the grand staircase was done for $440,000. So this comes today. What they're doing is, here's the pictures of the current staircase and the shape that they're in. So these have a metal panel on them, and that's what's in here. So they're holding water and rusting, and it's just normal concrete. So as those are rusting through, they're falling apart. Over here on this picture with the plate, this is something that facilities did just to cover up the holes so that people don't trip in them. It's very, very temporary patch. So with the new stairs, they get rid of the base pans. Those go away, and what it comes to now is, it's kind of hard to see on this picture, but they're precast steps, and the bottom just has one plate that supports. The new concrete, it's treated with a Hycrete, which basically is a type of concrete that doesn't allow it to absorb water, therefore not breaking down the concrete, because over time the water will break it down. These are expected to be the final fix. We've been working with getting the coating and stuff. The maintenance on this from year to year is just going to be touching up the paint, the epoxy on the metal railing and that kind of stuff. You'll obviously get some rust and stuff, but for the most part, they should be maintenance free. The project is expected to go to start mid-March, providing the approval from council, and finish up about the end of July. The contractor's on board and ready to go. And with that, I'll answer any questions you guys have.
Councilman Montoya.
Hi. I just have a few questions, and I think you answered a lot of them already. I just I wanted to touch base on some of the things that I had emailed you about. The first one is, it sounds like there's some real significant public safety concerns with these stairs in their current state. Is that, would you say that's accurate?
Yes.
Okay. That seemed to me when we're patching up holes that people can put their feet through, that's kind of a problem. And then I wonder if you could tell me a little bit more about the bid process for this expenditure. It sounds like we piggybacked on to another community, and then this was someone who's familiar with the work in these staircases?
Correct. So we use the city of El Mirage. Oftentimes when we do procurements, we try not to reinvent the wheel. The city of El Mirage has a contract already, which has been procured. FCI constructors, they're the ones that perform the work on the other staircases, and the work, from what I'm told, I wasn't part of that, was flawless. The city was very happy with the work that was done. So knowing that, we try to stick with that same contractor. Going through the El Mirage allows us to piggyback so that, it's not taking longer time to get the bids and stuff.
Sure. No, that makes sense. And the state of the other two stairs, we're feeling good about the current state of those stairs?
Yeah, they're still in great shape.
Okay. And then I think the other question I had, so you had mentioned the kind of the timeline, and earlier before this meeting, you showed me kind of a build out of when that, kind of starts and what the process looks like. Our sense is that it's not going to have a huge impact on people's access to the parking garage. The other reason I ask is because July is kind of peak tourism time in Prescott, so.
It is. So it will have an impact on the people accessing the garage from the alley. They're just going to have to walk further down the alley, further to the south to access it. Still access on the front, that's not impacted at all. This is one of those projects where we try to wait to not impact events and that kind of stuff. The current condition, and then with weather and everything else that plays into this, it's hard to really judge that.
Yeah, no, it would be worse if it was the stairs on the Granite side of the street, of the building, I'm sure. So thank you. I appreciate all your efforts in getting my questions answered.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. It's I've looked at those stairs, and boy, they're in horrible shape. But these days, being able to get a good contractor, get them funded, get them scheduled, get the work done, we have to be a little more flexible than maybe we were in the past. So I certainly support this. Any additional comments, public comments at all?
No, Mayor.
No? All right, I'll entertain a motion here.
Mayor, I'll move to approve city contract number 2022-152.
Second.
A motion and a second. Please vote.
Passes 7-0.
All right, moving on to item 10H.
Adoption of ordinance number 2022-1790, an ordinance of the mayor and council of the city of Prescott, Yavapai County, Arizona, amending Title 9 Traffic Regulations, Chapter 9-1 Prescott Traffic Code, Section 7 Methods of Parking by revising 9-1-7A and adding a new section 9-1-7E, adding a severance clause and adding a penalty clause.
Thank you, Sarah. Mayor and Council, John Brambilla, Deputy Chief of the Police Department. The item you have before you today is a proposed amendment to our current city code specific to parking, and we all know that parking is a very touchy subject sometimes. As you can see, we'll attack this in two different ways, and I have some examples of what we're dealing with. We get complaints, as you well know, from the community regarding all kinds of traffic problems, and specifically parking in the downtown business district. We also have our parking enforcement officers that have on-view complaints of parking violations that they address as they see those. This particular city code has either been enacted or revised in the 70s. And as we know, Prescott's changed just a little bit. Some of our roadways have changed, and some of our parking in the downtown area has changed. So probably needed to be revised. We approached City Legal and asked them to look at the statute and work with our parking enforcement officers on some verbiage that would work for the current state of parking in the downtown area. They were issuing citations based on the current city code, and when they're going to court, they're being dismissed, specifically because of the curbing definition in the current city code, which we're asking to be changed to a parking stall line or a parking curb. because things have changed a little bit. So the first part of the city code, we're going to look specifically at Union Street, the 100 block of East Union Street, where we know that we have angled parking going up the center of Union Street, where then eastbound and westbound traffic have one lane of traffic going in either direction. And so in this particular area, this was actually just Saturday, or actually yesterday, that I walked down there and there was at least 3 vehicles parked in a manner that we have concern. And our concern is public safety, always. This particular red truck, as well as the white truck that's just out of frame, and I have another picture of that, they've essentially come westbound down Union Street from Marina, and they've pulled through the first parking stall into the second. So as they try to leave, the only way they can leave is to go the wrong way on Union Street. There is not enough room in one lane there to, as you can see that truck, there's no way they can turn left out of that particular parking stall without colliding with either of those 2 vehicles. So we have a serious concern about drivers going the wrong way, either up or down Union Street. And here's just another picture from the top of Union from Marina Street looking down. And again, this white pickup truck is pulled through. It actually has a trailer attached to it. So unless he backed out of there, I'm not quite sure how he got out of that particular situation. So that's the first part, is that we're asking for an amendment to 917A to address the parking stalls and using that line as the curbing, essentially, for all other angled parking in the downtown area. Because our obvious concern here is the safety of the drivers in that area. The other part to this is going to be the 400 block of Beach Avenue. That's been an interesting piece of roadway. It's located directly behind Charlotte Hall Museum. At any given time over my career, it's had gates that we put up at night to close it off, because we had the cruisers, the young children that would be out cruising, they would use that. So we used to have gates. We literally would have to go lock them on Friday and open them back up on Sunday night. It's now a one-way street coming from McCormick. So this is a view looking from McCormick Street towards Summit. It is a one-way. It has parallel parking on both sides of the road. Again, based on complaints from our community, as well as on-view complaints, we will see vehicles parked the wrong way facing McCormick Street. So again, they either came in the wrong way or they're going to leave the wrong way. And again, it's a safety concern that we would have. So those are the 2 main areas that we have concerns with. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Councilman Moore.
Thank you. John, just on the first example you gave up on Union Street, why wouldn't we just put parking blocks so that they couldn't pull through?
That's something that could be addressed that way, and that could be, when we look at any type of enforcement, we always look at enforcement, education, and engineering. So that's something that we could talk with Ian Mattingly about in regards to engineering that way. And I don't have the answer as to why they didn't put those in.
It seems like a simple solution. You just put a parking block right up the middle, and then they couldn't pull through. But
what am I going to do with my trailer? It's a possibility. Nope, there's Craig. Craig
One
B.
of the primary challenges associated with that then would be maintenance with them, i.e. snow tomorrow morning, God willing. Because if we put parking bumpers in there, then it significantly reduces the ability to remove the snow out of there and or the damage that will occur to them every time that we are in snow operations in there.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Montoya.
Deputy Chief, thank you for your presentation. What is the cost of, like, so let's imagine that the code was amended, and one of your police officers sees this red truck, they ticket them. What is the cost for this violation?
That's a good question, Councilman. I don't have the answer. The fines are set by the court, and so I don't know the current.
So it's a range in theory.
Yes, it would be a range.
And I guess this is a question maybe for you, Matt. Do we have the way that the language is written in this code amendment? Are we pretty confident that these examples that Deputy Chief Brumvilla has brought forward?
This is the fix to get a finding of responsible for the civil infraction of violating the code.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Moore.
Sorry, yeah, I guess my question is, how are we going to educate and how is the public going to know that parking like that is illegal? Are we going to have signs, or, because if we don't educate, then it's going to continue and then they're going to get ticketed and then they're going to be upset because they didn't know that it was a violation. So how are we going to educate the public at large of these changes?
Yeah, that's a good question, and that's something that we could work with Public Works on, maybe some signage that we could put up in that area to indicate that. A lot of times, like in this particular situation, the lady in the frame is the driver of that truck. So I actually got to educate her. And she moved it very quickly and was very apologetic and didn't understand. So
Right, that's my point.
we get that part, and anytime, like I said, we look at enforcement and we look at education first. So we'll talk with Craig and Ian and see if there's something we can come up with.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Oh, I was just going to suggest that maybe there be an interim period that maybe some warnings were issued for a period of time and before they got the full ticket, which would probably be several $100s, I imagine.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, that's something we can definitely do. There's always kind of an opportunity there for people to learn. So we could look at doing something like that. Thank you.
Well, parking enforcement happens to be a particularly sensitive issue that I've been advocating for quite some time. I think a lot of times our locals have just felt that there is no enforcement going on, so consequently there's no reason for them to actually park the way they should in the correct position. And not only are the sizes of the stalls either maintaining themselves, but the size of these trucks continue to extend and widen, and the ability to maneuver out of a parking space becomes much more of a challenge. But quite frankly, I'm not that sympathetic with those claims that, gee, I should be able to park here because I have a big truck. There are places where big trucks can be parked, and maybe they might have to walk another half a block or something. But the number of extensions on those limit lines on Gurley Street are just, I've got pictures I know I've shared with you and shared with the chief. They're blocking almost the entire travel lane. And people just scratch their head and say, gee, I wonder why I can't do that. I've got pictures of them parking right in front of the signs. And they can't say that they didn't see the sign. But I think a lot of it, well, some of those pictures actually were. I think as long as we continue to maybe make some, and I've seen the reports for not only moving violations, but parking citations, and we do give a lot of warnings out. But by the same token, I think what we need to do is have consistent enforcement. Once somebody realizes that, oh, I probably will get a ticket here. I was up at the county seat having a dinner just, I think, last week, and I watched somebody parking right in front of the Bucky O'Neill statue. And they were getting out of the car and they were looking to see how close they were to the limit line, maybe moving it up a little bit, making sure that they fit in there correctly. And I think that's what people need to start being aware of. So I certainly support redefining this and make sure it's more enforceable. And, you know, I want to make sure that the public understands this is not a revenue source by any means. Those tickets aren't cheap, but most of it goes to state and county and other fee structures.
Yes.
So the amount that actually goes to the city is insignificant relative to the cost of the citation.
Yes, sir.
So I certainly support this, and like I said, as long as we continue to have consistent enforcement, people eventually will get the message that they just need to park safely, and it's a public safety concern, and it'll be safe for all of our pedestrians and people parking.
Mm-hmm.
All right, with that said, any other questions or concerns? Public comment?
I do have a hand up in the Zoom. Steve Blair. You can unmute yourself, Steve. I don't know, maybe not. Press the unmute button.
there is a God.
Steve, you have to unmute yourself because we can't hear you. Oh, he just lowered his hand. I guess that means never mind.
How's that?
Oh, there you are.
Hello, our wonderful colleagues. How are you? I think Mayor Good is right on spot that I believe that consistent enforcement, Mr. Brambilla and the police department, by allowing people to continue, especially on the weekends, to park in downtown Prescott in places where they are impeding traffic flow, they need to have a ticket. I don't care whether they're out of town or not. If the sign is posted clearly and visible, they should receive a ticket. And I would agree. I wouldn't be as sympathetic as writing them a warning. I would just give them a ticket. That's it.
Scorched earth.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Blair. Any further comment?
That's all, Mayor.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll move to adopt ordinance 2022-1790.
Second.
And a motion is second. Please vote.
Passes 7-0.
Very good.
Thank you.
All right, now we're going to 10I. Yeah, 10I.
Yep. Approval of FNP 21-001, the final plat for Ridgeview subdivision located at Gateway Boulevard and State Route 69, a 25-lot subdivision. Location APN 103-2050K and 103-20-570K. Site zoning business regional.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor, council members. Tammy DeWitt, Community Planner with Community Development. So for some background for this project, the preliminary plat was reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission at their September 24th, 2020 meeting and was approved by City Council at the October 27th, 2020 meeting. The water service agreement was also approved by City Council at the September 22nd, 2020 meeting. So the request is for a 25-lot subdivision on 2.92 acres. It is zoned business regional out by the mall. And these are going to be patio home style developments like townhomes, detached, separately owned homes. This is a planned area development. They are proposing 32% open space, which they're only required to do 20%. There are reduced setbacks and smaller lot sizes with the planned area development, which were approved with the preliminary plat. And these will be private streets, and they come from the main driveway for the mall. So here's one half of the project. There are two parcels separated. So this is one of the plats, and these are roadways and open space tracks in here. And then here's the other side that they're proposing. This is the subject parcels. They're right here. This is Gateway Boulevard, and you have Dillard's right here. And this is the imagery of it. So it'll be these two, and we have the main access here off Gateway Boulevard, and this will be on either side of that road. And here's a close-up of that. It is the access is off this main driveway that goes around the mall, and there was no issues or concerns from fire. There is fire access to each of the lots, so they meet all those requirements, and they have plenty of access they've been working with Public Works for trash and things like that to make sure that there's no issues with it out in this area. Here's some pictures. It'll be up here on this lot is one side, and then we have the other side over here where it's up a little higher. And these are already graded lots that were part when the mall was developed. They're already flat and plat pads. Then the access, this is the main driveway around the mall. Oh, this, yeah. The proposed final plat is in substantial conformance to the approved preliminary plat that was approved back in 2020. And the recommended motion, if you choose to approve this, it is in substantial conformance with the approved preliminary plat, and the water service agreement has also been approved. And I'm free to answer any questions that you may have.
Councilman Moore.
Thank you, Mayor. Pardon me. I was mixing Mayor and Tammy together.
Mary.
Tammy, I just have to ask, You know, I look at the pictures and I've, studied the packet and I look at the landscape there and it says 32% open space. Does the developer have any plans to really recreate open space? Like, is it just going to be that graded, barren dirt that's there now? Are they going to actually put in some native habitat and maybe restore it to open space? That's my question.
I think they're going to put in amenities like park areas in there for the residents there. So it's going to be mostly for the residents there. It won't be for the public.
Okay.
Is the applicant here so we can ask him?
Right now, they're still looking for a builder for the lot, so they're just kind of getting the plat approved to get all this through, and then they'll have a builder come in that'll finish out the project.
Can I continue my line of question? I'm sorry. I guess my concern is when I hear the word open space, I think of a more natural environment that's, open to the community and not just to the residents. It's open space. And we talk a lot about open space that we have purchased as a city, and of course it's available and accessible to the community. I'm not saying that we want the community to be available to their open space, but I would just like to see an emphasis on open space that is more natural and not park-like, perhaps.
Well, Tammy, I'm sure if they are planning any type of landscaping, they have to meet our low water drought tolerant plant palette.
Correct.
I know the slope on the backside of that towards Gateway Boulevard is kind of deteriorated. So I would expect, and would we expect them to kind of stabilize that slope and make sure it's in a little more aesthetic condition than it is now?
If it's in their property, yes. If it's in the city right away, we'll have to work with Public Works and see what their plans are for that.
So would that be right away from the bottom of Gateway Boulevard where the curbing is up to their edge of the development?
Yeah, it is about half and half. It looks like that's about the property line about here, so.
So we might have to actually do some work ourselves.
And I'm sure that the developer, when the builders come in, that they're going to want to beautify that area to make it since they are going to be purchased residential houses, people will be living there. So I'm sure they're going to want to do a little bit more to up the value and improve the area to attract people.
Let's keep in mind that this development has a tendency to be able to create almost guaranteed customers for the mall. I mean,
Yes.
Let's face it, a lot of the brick and mortar malls throughout the country are closing and being abandoned. So being able to utilize this large parking area to allow development of residential units that already exist within the city. We're already providing police and fire protection. We're not extending services beyond our border areas. And we're helping to actually revitalize the mall by having some automatic residents that are going to be utilizing it. I think when you look at all those things together, this is a very beneficial development for the mall and for the city. So again, with new residents in there, they're going to be patronizing those services, generating TPT sales for the city. I think it's an innovative and an appropriate and valuable way of kind of repurposing a large parking area that's really no longer needed.
And currently, this is just vacant property that's sitting there waiting for either to be developed or, but this is a great project that we're starting to see around the country of different ways of using these mall properties and revitalizing them to bring people to those. So we have some apartments going in over on the other side. So for these to be residential lots, it's a great combination of the different types of residential uses up there.
And I've had some comments from people that live nearby, kind of concerned about additional traffic. But let's face it, when the mall was fully operational, it had a lot more traffic going down Gateway Boulevard than any of these residents are going to contribute. So I think all things considered, it's a really good program and a really good project. Any other questions, concerns, public comment?
No, Mayor.
All right, I'll entertain a motion, please.
I move to approve FNP 21-001.
Second.
Motion is second, please vote.
Passes 7-0.
All right, now we're moving on to 10J.
Approve.
You're excused.
So approval of RVP 22-001, a revision of plat to reconfigure lots and add unsubdivided land to the north end of Block 6, abandonment of approximately 266 square feet of right-of-way, and the dedication of approximately 120 square feet of right-of-way. Location APNs 113-10-001, 113-10-002, 113-10-003, and a portion of 113-10-057, site zoning industrial light.
Good afternoon. Okay. I was hoping he was going to stay and explain this for you, but I guess not. Because this is very complicated, and we're going to give you a diagram. So hopefully this plat is going to unknot this and fix some issues that have happened over the years. We see this with some of the older subdivisions in areas where the surveys never closed. There's little strips like that were left out that aren't really belonging to anybody. So the idea is this plat, with the purchase of one of the properties were recently purchased, so we have to combine the parcels. We have buildings that cross property lines. So this plat is going to fix that, as well as some other right-of-way issues and such. So this is on Miller Valley Road. This is Olson's right here. And this is the subject properties here. We have the post office, CVS up here. So this kind of blue line kind of outlines all the parcels that are involved in this. And let's see, and this is kind of imagery of it. So this has been purchased. So to get this all as one parcel, we're going to combine these lots to create one. And let's see, yeah. So these will all be combined into one. This is going to be combined to another one. There's some right-of-way issues up here that are going to be fixed with this. So that's kind of complicated mess there is up here. This kind of shows it. So this is all going to be into one parcel here for the front. And then we have the back lot here, which are these parcels here. These are all going to be combined to create lot 1R and lot 2R. Then up at the corner, this is the fun part that I was trying to figure out how to even write this. So there's this little strip here that was never really dedicated or was like kind of left open. So this will combine this with this. This part of the right-of-way, which has some of their parking and such in it, is going to be to this parcel. So this will all become one parcel here. Then we have some parts of here that this is going to be dedicated here because there's some improvements. And then we have other areas here that are going to become part of this parcel. And I think I got it all. I think. Some of these lines are going to be abandoned, so it's going to be a lot cleaner. We're going to fix some of the surveying issues that have happened over the years. So this was done back in 1915. So I'm sure there's been a lot of surveying, splitting, combines. So this is going to fix all this, we're hoping. So hopefully I explained that enough, and the ball will be untwined now, and we can move forward and hopefully have this area a little bit fixed up to be a little bit easier.
So this was all private property,
Yes, it is.
but the way the plats were identified, there was a lot of undifferentiated borders of some sort.
There were little remainders. So like this little hatch strip here, this little sliver here, that was a remnant where the surveys just never closed. So through the years, using different surveying techniques and the way the properties were split out and combined over the years, there's these little nuances that were kind of left out or they're getting fixed now because some of the development happened out in this area for the parking, so they want to deed it over so it gets on this property. And then all this stuff up here along Miller Valley Road just kind of fixes some of our this is going to go to the city, which will become now part of the city right away. And then there's parts of it here that'll be part of this plot now. So it's just cleaning up some of the weirdness out there, I guess.
So the property owners that are involved, there's no dispute, and they're just happy to be able to have this redesigned or redesignated.
Correct. For this parcel here, we have a property line that goes across here through the middle of the building, which we can't have per building code. So this front
It's like
lot here.
Colorado City.
Correct. So, so as you can see here in the imagery here, you have some of the improvements up here. So this is going to fix that. Then this building will actually, this will come down, so the parking and the building will all be on one lot. This will all be on one lot with its parking. So it's just fixing some of the splits and combinations that have happened through the years and the remnants that have been left out.
I think it's pretty obvious that this needs to be done and should have been done 100 years ago, right?
Yeah. Well, you know, it takes time sometimes.
Yeah.
And
Well, I'm glad that we finally got it done. Mayor Pro Tem?
Oh, I'd just like to make a comment that hopefully going forward, we don't approve buildings being built on top of property lines anymore. Thank you.
I'm sure that's a given. All right, any other comments or public comments or?
No, Mayor.
Nothing.
Seems everyone's in favor of not drawing lines through buildings.
Well, then I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll move to approve RVP 22-001.
Second.
I have a motion and second, please vote.
Passes 6-0.
Well, I think that concludes our agenda items today. So I have a comment here. It's not one of our founding fathers, but considering some of the conflict that seems to be escalating throughout the world, the American dream lives, not only in the hearts and minds of our countrymen, but in the hearts and minds of millions of the world's people in both free and oppressed societies who look to us for leadership. As long as that dream lives, as long as we continue to defend it, America has a future, and all of mankind has reason to hope. This meeting is adjourned.
Yay.